have a critical mass here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for attending Elevate HR's Human Capital Management in Dynamics 365 for Operations webinar. My name is Emily Erickson. I am a Senior Solutions Architect here at Elevate HR, and I'll be running today's presentation. Let's kick things off with a bit of a company overview for those of you that have not attended previous sessions. Elevate HR is the preeminent dedicated provider of human resources, human capital management, products and services in the global Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Dynamics AX markets. Our legacy is as the original developers of the Microsoft Dynamics AX human resources and questionnaires modules. We sort of like to joke that we know where the gaps have been because we wrote them there ourselves and we come in to fill them. But we're more than just a software development company. We are also subject matter experts, deep subject matter experts in human resources, HR processes, and really business transformation. And so we don't just provide the software, we also implement the full suite of human capital management, the native product plus our own HCM and payroll for both Dynamics 365 and for Dynamics AX. We are a gold certified partner, and we are CFMD, or Certified for Microsoft Dynamics, which are the two highest sort of levels of partnership that one can achieve with Microsoft. And what we're going to be taking a look at today is sort of an overview of the core lifecycle processes in Microsoft Dynamics 365 for operations. So the full integrated HCM suite here really covers the entire employee lifecycle process, and that's the best way to get a look at what the system can do. Everything from the acquisition of talent through to onboarding employees, managing their time with the organization, and then handling that separation and post-separation process as well. What we have highlighted here in the center, these green boxes, are what really differentiates the combined solution here. It's not just enough to manage your HR components. You want to have that integrated with the full Microsoft suite, including Active Directory, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in just a few minutes as well. And a focus in on really letting HR own their destiny, own configurable approvals and processes, and construct these to manage organizations as large or small, as consolidated or global in scope as they might need to be. And then down in blue here, we're really just looking at the some of the sort of core components that we can take a look at today and that we can look at later as well. It looks like I'm getting a question about the screen changing here. We should be looking at an integrated HCM PowerPoint here. It should say Integrated Human Capital Management up top with a couple of colored boxes. Nice, lovely picture. We're good? Okay, excellent. Please do feel free to reach out with questions, comments as we go. If anything else pops up, I can always take questions, and we'll try to do that live at the end here as well. So to keep things moving here, I do want to address very quickly the direction of and the focus, particularly the renewed focus here of HCM in the Microsoft space. Satya Nadella speaks to Microsoft's mission as to empower every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And some of you may have seen this slide floating around a little bit with, IT at the core. It's shifted a little to business at the core. But I think really and realistically, it is people that are at the center of this particular mission, whether that's dealing with computing, software, or people's management and use of it, and how they interact, most importantly for all of you, with your organizations. And really, there is nowhere is Microsoft's mission to empower people more applicable than in the realm of human capital management, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at here today. So I've talked a lot, we've been tossing around this word integrated, right? Integrated HCM. What does that mean to us? Well, first and foremost, as I've said, it's the employee lifecycle, right? And it's everything integrated within this context. So when someone applies through the Elevate HR applicant portal, that data flows directly into Dynamics. That applicant record is transitioned seamlessly into an employee record, and that information that stays associated with an employee throughout their entire time at the organization through transitions, layoffs, rehires, terminations. All of your data you enter at once, it's all tracked and managed in the system through a series of flows. This isn't happening in a bubble. Think of these arrows here as really representing integrated processes and workflows that pull together all aspects of an employee's time at the organization, and all of this is happening in the context of your ERP. Whether that's Dynamics 365 or Dynamics AX, you're not working in a little HR bubble here. You have an integrated Active Directory. And if you attended one of our earlier sessions, you'll know that Active Directory is, think of it as the governing body that controls system security access enterprise-wide. So when you hire someone on the HR side, that can trigger the creation and activation of their AD user account. Keep it all synchronized so your data is up to date in all systems. There's no longer any manual intervention to handle that. And then, of course, managing that separation process. If somebody leaves the organization, you want to make sure you can shut off their system access immediately based on policies. Now, traditionally, this has really happened entirely in the context of HR. We can also use this function, this policy-driven AD management, for all global address book records as well, so vendors, customers, contacts, etc. On the ERP side, though, what you're also getting is true multifunctional integration. So anyone out there, if you are using workflows in Dynamics today, or if you are using procurement and you have signing limits or expense claims, or if you're on the services side and you're using any of the field services components or the project or field one, any of that, all of that is going to have a reliance on, well, people, right? Worker records. And if you have people in the system, well, those people need somewhere to sit. So that means you got to have jobs and positions all in the system together. And if you're maintaining all of that, you should be really, really utilizing and using what the Dynamics HCM components have to offer. And then, of course, there's your sort of standard ERP bonuses to having everything in the same system. Everybody has a common user experience, from your employees and managers to people that are working back end in the system, on a daily basis for their jobs. And again, single point of entry, single source of truth. All of your data is in the same place, because at the end of the day, that's what a lot of this really does come down to, is data. And from an HR standpoint, first and foremost, that really means compliance reporting, right? Tactically, you need to report on your people, and that might mean, in the U.S., things like EEO, OSHA, VETS reporting, and depending on where you're located, we have different localized compliance data and reporting for different areas of the world. Also, cross-enterprise analytics, right? If your people data is in there with your finance and supply chain data, you can start to pull together some very, very interesting correlations, because it's all there in the same place and you can access it as you need to. And then, again, part of the value proposition that Microsoft offers is really incredible analytical tools. In D365 for operations, that means Power BI, so you can surface your data in some very, very strong, interesting ways to have some very tailored, very specific and useful, built-for-purpose HCM dashboards and KPIs. So that's what we're going to take a look at broadly. Last slide here before we jump into the system are what we consider the building blocks, or the three critical elements of Dynamics HCM that we'll be taking a look at today: the job, the position, and the worker. So the job really represents what gets done. It's the work that's needed, the requirements for complete a series of tasks. These are going to track skills that are required, education, and from a compensation standpoint, it's going to be the relative amount that work is worth to an organization. The position is an organizing mechanism. Think of it as a seat or a chair that somebody fills. So it's the location and the space around which the work gets done. And positions are going to influence regional compensation differences. So if I'm a sales rep in New York City and we've got another sales rep out in rural Idaho, while we're doing the same work, we're responsible for accomplishing the same things, we'll have the same job code, but because we're located in different areas, cost of living might be a little bit different. We're going to maybe have slightly different compensation regions or influences. Same thing if I'm working out in Prague. Say we're not only going to have different regional pay differences, we're also going to have different currency. So all of that's going to be driven from a compensation standpoint at the position level. And then last, and perhaps most importantly, we have number 3, the worker. It's the person who does the job, sits in the position, and at its highest level in Dynamics, that can be broken down into employees and contractors. Broadly paid out through payroll, paid out through accounts payable, and then really an unlimited number of user-definable categories from there. So those are the basics. Let's jump into the system here, and we'll sort of walk through a sample lifecycle process. what we're looking at right here, this is my Dynamics 365 for Operations homepage. And quick navigational point for those of you that are new to this version of the software. What I'm looking at here is my dashboard. This is what I see when I sign in first thing. This is the information that I'm interested in looking at and dealing with when I come into the system. All of the information that I need to do my job, I'll have those here in what we call workspaces. Think of them as functional groupings of tasks and information. Over here on the left-hand side, I have a calendar that lets me really take a look at my people at any given point in time. Everything here in Dynamics is effective dated, which is critically important when we're starting to talk about HR records. The date and time that I hire somebody has to line up exactly with their employment records that start and any of their compensation records. It's critical for payroll. So we need to make sure all of this lines up. And the good news is we can future date or post date just about any transaction we need to. So all of this can stay aligned. But we also might want to come in and see, well, how did my organization look on June 1st? What will it look like on September 1st? And I can come in here, and if I select one of these dates, it's going to ask me if I want to change my session date. It's a great way to get a snapshot of the organization, the position hierarchy, org charts, and things like that. And then we can go from there. I am getting a message that we have lost audio here for just a second. So if you can hear me, bear with me. I'm going to take a look and see. Can you all hear me right now? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop the screen share and we'll see if this all comes back. So bear with me here for just a second. All right, I'm going to reshare my screen. All right, looks like it's back up. Okay, so I don't know how much of that you missed. Wasn't too much. I've been sitting here on the dashboard sort of with the navigational points. The only other thing that's worth looking at over here for right now is this little navigation pane or my hamburger menu, these sort of three little lines here. If I open this up, it's going to give me a great view of everything that the system has to offer. We're focused in here today on the Human Resources Advanced module here, although I do have access to the full ERP. And these menu items should give you a pretty good list of really fully what the system has to offer, everything from the core organizational components into benefits administration, compensation management, payroll, integrations out with global third-party payroll providers or the internal components, managing time and absence, recruitment, performance and competencies, courses, workflow, compliance reporting, all of the above. And our focus today really is going to be on the lifecycle process. So we're going to start off with something that I think is going to be familiar to everybody, right? Because we're all employees and many of us are managing people as well. So we're going to start things off on the manager self-service screen. Now, what's great about this, again, the common user experience, my manager self-service experience here is going to be the same, look the same, feel the same as when I'm interacting with the rest of the system. So if I come in here and I take a look, I can see my team here. I've got some quick notes and KPIs and things that I'm interested in looking at over here on the left-hand side. I can come in, I can take a look at my positions here, who's here in my organization, how long have they been here, what salary are they making. We'll just let this refresh here for us for a second. And I can see it's a great team. They've been here for a little while. They've been achieving good results, but we are swamped. We are busy. I could really use another couple people on my team, and maybe not managers like I have today. Maybe we need a sales rep, someone to come in and work as part of the team and help pick up some of the weight that we've got right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to launch my position requisition wizard. This is my request to HR to say, okay, look, I've got a great team, but I need more people. I need some help. And I'm going to have a couple of options here. And this is completely configurable, by the way, this process that I'm about to show you. So what do you want managers to own? Should they only be able to ask for a new position? Can they ask for a recruitment project as well if they want to get involved in that process? So you can start to define what these roles should look like, and we can build out processes to match. Again, I want to be very specific when I say build. This is end user configurable. So anyone with a couple minutes of training, well, I'll put myself out of business, a couple of hours, maybe a week of training can come in here and start to build out these processes. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the position and recruitment project. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to say as a manager, okay, I need a new person. Here's what I want. Here's what the position should look like. And here's how I'd like to go recruit for that. You can write all of this text in here, choose what screens you're seeing. So it is very configurable, this process here. And what this is going to do is it's going to walk me as a manager step by step through the process that I need to request this. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to say I want this to go in the sales and marketing department, and I can type this in or I can pull from a list of values that have been given to me here in the system. It's all going to be managed, so I can't just go to town and type in whatever I'd like. And again, we've got a lot of business, so I'm a bit ambitious. I'm going to ask not just for one new position, but for 3. And as I click that, you'll notice it's actually starting to generate those position numbers through a number sequence for me in the background. So everything that I type in is not going to need retyping by someone else down the line. If I've put it in the system, it's going to be held and tracked and managed and stored for me. So there's no type of duplicate data entry or anything like that as part of this process. I'm going to come in, I'm going to enter the reports to position, whoever this might be, any other information that I'd like to add or request, full-time or part-time, maybe budgeted or not budgeted. It's all user definable, this information right here. And when do I want this activated? Well, probably not today. That's a little too ambitious. Let's say I want this to be effective August 1st of 2017. I can add any financial dimensions that I'd like. And now that I'm here on the recruitment screen, I'm going to say, okay, first of all, are there any recruitment projects that exist today that match the criteria that I'm looking for? So I can sort of join the search, and there aren't. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for a new project as part of this. Call it whatever I'd like. And I can indicate if there's a recruiter that I'd like to be involved in this. I can select someone, or I can leave it blank and it can be filled in later if I need to. Hiring manager, any other contacts, so people that I'd like to be kept in the loop about this process, I can go ahead and do that. If I want this to be an internal posting just through self-service, or if we've loaded any other web posting groups, other sites we want to push this out to, we can certainly do that as well. And then I can start to continue through to finish, or if I'd like, I can even add any media that I'd like us to post to, add any comments or developments or areas of interest that I'd like to include as part of this listing. But if we're happy, I'll go ahead and click Finish. And I am going to get a lovely little message across the top of my screen here that tells me there is an approval process in place. Now this is good because you don't want managers just to come in here and start creating all kinds of records in the system. The approval process is going to make sure that this stays in a pending state until someone comes in, makes any updates that are needed, and completes the requisition. We'll take a look at this approval process in more detail as we continue today. So that's the manager self-service process of requisitioning a position. Now that we've done that, we're going to go out and take a look at the recruiter's experience going out and recruiting for that. So we're going to come in and I'm going to jump us into the Recruitment Management workspace here. Now, this should look very familiar to those of you that are used to D365. All of these workspaces are going to be set up very, very similarly. So I can see these little tiles here are going to be counts of information, things that I want to access and look at on a regular basis. And as I start to scroll through, I'll start to get a little bit more detail. So my list page here will show me all of the active recruitment projects that we're recruiting for. And as I continue to scroll over here, I'll start to see things like charts, graphic, KPIs, things that I want to track and look at. So, 5-year spread, where have we been most successful recruiting people? For example, we can start to say, okay, well, if the company website is great, let's throw more, marketing might into our branding on our site, and maybe focus less on any other type of advertising that we're doing. We can pop in Power BI tiles, whatever is needed to start to show you the data that you need. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to drill down into this recruitment project here, this sales rep project that we're hiring for. And we'll be able to see over on the right-hand side sort of a summary of candidates that we've received so far. This is think of it as a bucket. It's what pulls together the application process. It's going to hold all of the information that we're posting out for. We get to define our own posting process for each application. You can build out a standard process of what you'd like applicants to enter. You can build out a very, very tailored process. So a highly skilled, say, IoT engineer might have a very, very different application process than an hourly or bargaining unit employee that you might have. So you can build out all of these different processes as needed and associate them up here. Now, all of my applications that have come in, these have come in really one of two ways. Most common is using Elevate HR's applicant portal, right? It's a site that sits out on your company website. Applicants click through, apply, and that data is automatically fed straight through into the Dynamics recruitment components. We also integrate with third-party recruiting sites as well to sort of pull all that in en masse and launch the onboarding process the way you'll see us do as well. So there's some options there depending on what process makes sense. So what we are going to do now is, we can also, by the way, review this nice little job ad down here. So whatever format that needs to be, this is what is posted out to the site, and I can view a snapshot of that here in the system. My applications, they're going to show me by status. So if I want to know who's been employed through this project so far, I can come in and see that it looks like we already hired Catherine, so that's maybe one of the 3 or 5 people I want to hire. What we're going to do now is we're going to drill down. Let's take a look at Don DeLillo's application here. Review any attachments, resumes, things that he's submitted. We can look at all of that here. I can come in and I can initiate an applicant interview. So I can build out an interview process, schedule this out, and send it out through Outlook if I'd like, or directly through the client here in the system, depending on what's needed. And I can also start to manage my applicant communication, so I can create templated letters or emails to make sure that I am in communication with Don throughout this process. So we can send him a formatted offer letter, push that out, and receive an acceptance back through the onboarding portal. So if we've walked through this process, we think Don is just an excellent candidate. He wrote a best cover letter we've ever seen. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to update his application status to confirmed. I'm really just doing this so I can move him forward in the process and I can keep track of candidates like you saw in that nice little fact pane earlier. And then on that same screen that I selected confirmed, I'm going to come down here and launch my hire wizard. So we've initiated the process, we've got a signed offer letter, and we're going to come in and we're going to start the hiring process. Now, this should start to look a little similar to you, a little familiar. This is just like that position requisition process, only we can build out, again, as many of these as we need to, and you do have full field level control over the entire process. So it's going to step you through, step by step, all of the information that you need, everything you need to review and look at and manage as you're hiring somebody. And basically all of that stuff that we walked you through very, very quickly, all those forms and fields and screens are now part of a process that you, on the HR side, really get to design and define. So what screens do I see? What data is included on what screen? And what's mandatory? What do I have to fill in? What is read-only? Now, the nice thing here is that I haven't keyed any of this in. This is all coming from the applicant. So I can come in and see he's got his last name, first name, nickname in here ready for me, and anything that he's put in we'll have access to. Now, if I don't need to track all of this, so if I don't need to track my phonetic first, middle, and last name, and I don't really even want that part of the process, I can go ahead and hide those fields. And we'll look at a process a little bit later that actually has those fields already hidden for us. As we continue through, and I've put a lot on here so we can get a sense of sort of the breadth of what we can begin to track, and that includes things like user-definable fields, both free text and validated, for that data that you really need to track that might not already have a label for it already here in Dynamics. What's also great about this process is that you can build out as many of these as you need to. So I can have a core global process that the entire company uses, and maybe some localized versions of that as well. So in the US, we can't really ask for someone's birth date, gender, ethnicity, religion up front in the process. It's far more common in Europe and in Germany. In fact, people often ask for religion as part of the application process. So you want to make sure that you can gather requirements as they are needed locally, but still have a broad process architecture that you're using globally. When I come to this next screen here, things like identification types, this is where I'd be putting in my taxation number, my social insurance or security number, national insurance number, passports, all of those identification types. But in HR, I don't really want to be responsible for keying that in the system. I'd far rather have the onus be on the employee. So what we're going to do is I'm not going to fill this in right now. We can always pass this back to the employee through the onboarding portal and have them enter this information after they've accepted the offer letter when it's legal to ask for this, but before they start on their first day of work. So we'll have it all here in the system. Address information as well. Again, I don't want to enter this. I want the new hire to do that. But I will see that he's already gone ahead and put in his communication details. So we have his personal email address. We have his mobile phone number. Some of this, based on our rules, might sync up to Active Directory, or we may choose to accept the work phone and email address from Active Directory into Dynamics if that's the data that we really want to be tracking. Now, I've mostly been reviewing this so far. I haven't entered a lot of information. But now is where my job begins. This is where I'm starting to categorize this employee. So what's the employment type? What's the reason code for hiring him? And we can build all of this stuff out user definable as needed. Whole series of dates. You know, if I'm starting on the 14th, maybe I was actually originally hired on the 10th. I just didn't start until today. And then there's an adjusted start date. And we have a probation period out in a couple of months, right, that we want to track. So we can build all of this up as we need to here as part of this process. Any additional payroll information we might need, benefits information, and the position piece here, this is going to pull in information directly from the recruitment project. And we have two options. One is to select an already vacant position to hire him into, and the other is to just even further streamline this process and say, okay, maybe we're not using the position requisition wizards. Maybe we actually want to create a new position on the fly. Say we're a services organization, right, and we are constantly hiring new people. We are constantly recycling positions and bringing new people on to staff gigs. That's where we might choose to create a new position as part of this process. If we're a bit more solid, we have really formal budgeting processes like public sector, we're probably not going to create positions while we're hiring someone on the fly. We handle that position requisition process that we looked at earlier and do it as part of a formal budgeting sequence. So if I leave you with anything, it's that you have a lot of options for how you'd begin to configure the system depending on international geographic location, depending on sector and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and set this position up. We can set that position type, set the compensation region, any other information we want to pull together, make sure that this is primary, of course, and go on from there. Any temporary worker assignments that we might need, we'll make sure we're entering all of this data the way we should. And when I reach the end, I'm going to click Finish, and I'm going to get another lovely message telling me that there's an approval process in place. And this is for one of a couple of reasons. One, again, I'm not actually authorized to finish this. Someone, my boss or a manager, has to go in and actually approve this hire. Or two, we haven't finished the process. We are not quite ready to finalize Don's hire. We don't know if he's going to show up on day one. He might not. This happens sometimes. It's not great, but you know, we try to bring in a big class of people and they don't all always show up. So we don't want to put this data, finalize it in the ERP until we're sure we've looked him in the eye and shook his hand and he's here and I can hit finish. And we also maybe need some more information. So identification types, bank accounts, tax data, right? We want to get more from the employee that they should be responsible for filling in. And we also, of course, do want to make sure that somebody else internally has a chance to review all of that information before we finish it. So a lot of meaning we can ascribe to that "you must approve the wizard" button there. And then the other thing I'm getting is just message details letting me know that workflow process has kicked off, it's pushed out an email, and this process has completed successfully. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go find where Don's data is sitting. Well, we've still got his applicant record, but because it hasn't finished, we're going to pop into what we call the wizard retrieval, the pending hire wizards category. Again, this is holding all of our data in wizard tables, essentially, so we're not committing his record to the database just yet, so we don't have to ever go out and sort of reverse the hire, reverse the termination, if anything like that happens. So I do have approval capabilities here in the system, so I can come in at any point in time. I can restart this to walk through the process again, or I can always come in and hit this edit button, which is really nice if it doesn't quite matter the order in which I do things, but I just need to come in and make sure that I'm reviewing a snapshot of all of this data. I can come in, I can pop this up and view anything that I need to here on a single screen, and full traceability to see who created it, when they created it, and you know, who's been editing this particular record. So what I'm going to do is everything looks good. I'm going to approve and I'm going to finish the wizard, and I'm going to get another notification letting me know it's been kicked off to the next step in the process. Now, we can build a single onboarding process with one person that touches the data and is responsible for entering it. In larger organizations, you might have 10 people that need to each input their separate piece of information. A comp and ben specialist who manages benefits eligibility and adds compensation. Maybe we do need to kick it back off to Dawn to enter more information. So the process hasn't finished until we've fully moved through it. And you'll notice that my wizard ID has been changing as I move through this. So each step is going to have a different ID so I can always track who is where in this process. I won't walk you through another wizard here on the call, right? It's the same concept of stepping through this and entering information. So what we'll do is we'll assume this is all good. We'll go ahead. We will approve. And I'll just finish this off to complete the process. It'll give me message details, right? If I skip through a couple of things, it's letting me know there's a couple other pieces of data I really should go finish, that he's actually got an open application that we never closed out on the recruiting side, right? We've been jumping pretty quickly through this, but it will make sure that I understand what my open and outstanding tasks are, and it's going to kick off any other workflows that it needs to at this point in the process. So what we've really walked through is, as I said, this configurable process architecture so we can design a lifecycle process to fit the scenario, the region, the industry, whatever we might need to do. And we have this same concept not just for hiring and onboarding, but for any lifecycle process. So transferring people from one department or country to another, even a promotion up the line. Termination processes as well, we can build out, and any other type of employee update that we might need to look at. Now, what I just walked you through was from the vantage point of a recruiter, right? So I had a lot of access. I could see a lot of data. Managers also have access to a limited chunk of this data. So we're going to jump back to where we started today, close out of this message here, and we're going to jump back into Manager Self-Service. So we saw how I can request a new position, but let's look at how I can actually interact with my existing employees here. So if I come in and I've got Chris's record here, and I come down to look at more details, not only can I view information about him, I can also come in here and I can perform actions or initiate actions. So I can really partner with HR here instead of sitting, pushing everything off to them to ask them to do the work. So what I'm going to do is, Chris is coming up on what was it, 11 years, I think. He's been here for a while. He's been an excellent performer, and we want to go ahead and I'm going to suggest that he receives an increase. I want to give him a promotion, not really in title because we can't quite do that, but I do want to give him a raise. So I'm going to come in here to update employee. And I'm going to see a whole series of options here, maybe a leave of absence, a compensation update, whatever you want a manager to be able to initiate for their employees. So I'll grab compensation update. And first screen, the instructions you get to write for whoever you need to. And the second screen here should look a little bit different than the last round. So this is that same employee summary data that we saw when we were trying to hire Dawn. And what we've got here is a very, very limited set of that data. So we've used field level control to narrow this down because you want managers to be, how shall we say, restricted in their ability to view, interact with, and edit their employees' data. Some of this needs to stay a little bit more confidential. And some of it's just extraneous. They don't need it to recommend a compensation update. So we're limiting this in here to the compensation effective date. And I'll say, you know what, this should actually be effective September 1st. Let's make this a nice even number here. So we'll get that set up. And then I want all of this stuff to be read-only. As you can see, I can't come in and edit any of this because you don't want the managers necessarily making changes to things like personnel numbers and names. And then it's just going to ask me to sort of verify his position information. This is where he sits. So if I want any information about the job or his grade, I can always drill down and look at that and see, okay, well, he's a sales manager, which means he's in grade 6, so here's what his range should be. I can see all of that information here. And if I hit next, I'm going to have an option to, well, change his compensation. So I can come in here and I can see, all right, here's what he's making today. And I can add a new line of compensation, but what I really want to do is change what he has. So I'm going to give him a merit increase. And I can come in, and we're going to give, this is an off-cycle increase, right? We're going to sort of bypass our regular March merit cycles here. And I can come in and say, okay, I'm going to let's see what 5% looks like. So I can type in either a percentage or an amount, and it'll tell me, okay, here's what he started with, and here's what the new pay rate comes out to if we're updating this. So I can see if I give him a 5%, that comes out to about $4,200, and here's what the new pay rate would be. I can always adjust this if I want to give him, let's say, 4,000 even. That's going to come out to an increased percentage of 4.74, so I can track this however I need to. And then when I'm done, I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to finish this off. And once more, I'm going to get a nice little notification telling me, and I can choose sort of how this pops up. But this one's going to let me know, again, there's an approval process in place, and someone needs to go in and review the compensation update and make sure that that's pushing forward. So that might be my direct supervisor, or that might go off to someone in HR. It depends on what the process needs to look like. So that's sort of a broad overview of the lifecycle processes and how you can really start to use Dynamics HCM to manage not just your people from an HR standpoint, but also from an engagement standpoint, empowering managers to come in and work with their employees, and employees to work with their managers as well. As an employee, of course, if I come in and take a look at self-service, I'll be able to access information about myself. I'll be able to do things like enroll in my benefits. I'll be able to come in and manage my expenses and my timesheets, check my personal information, and track any performance goals or reviews that I have outstanding. And this sort of view and experience can be a little bit different. So here's what Julia's page might look like. Václav's might be a little bit different, so we're not tracking expenses, but I do have scheduled reviews and things that I need to be working through. So you would be able to come in and manage all of your data and information. Now, I do want to take a quick pause here. I want to see if anyone here in the audience has any questions that I can answer. So if you all take a look at your little questions box down at the bottom, please feel free to pop those out, and I can take them in real time and adjust as much as I can here on the call. Of course, you're always welcome to jump into our booth as well after this session. All right, well, we'll give everybody a few minutes here to formulate questions. What we can also do here is I'm going to pop my contact information up here on the screen, so please do feel free to reach out if you have any questions. You can reach us at sales@elevate-hr.com. You can always reach out to me directly, emily.erickson@elevate-hr.com, and the best number is country code 1-973-404-7844. And it looks like we've got another question coming in here. So a question about what is Elevate HR Editions versus the native or standard Dynamics product. So part of the way we like to operate, I think calling this out separately in a demo, this is ours, this is yours or theirs, tends to detract from the overall sort of process. So I didn't call it out while I was showing. A lot of the core components, so the records, job, position, worker, the recruitment project concept are native sort of database records. All of the processes, so the process wizards and the workflow components, the position-based pieces that I walked you through, those were all Elevate HR components, so pulling it together into a configurable process. The Active Directory integration pieces, if you were on sessions earlier today, that's Elevate HR as well. So what we really try to do is capitalize on the native Dynamics components. It's an incredible database. There's a lot of really great material in there, and we pull it together into a process, and we give HR the toolbox and the keys to design it, sort of bringing the concept of design thinking to the world of HCM and working with this ERP to bring it together. The other components are the benefits administration module that we didn't look at in too much detail, but that brings you the concept of real-time life events, open enrollment. Happy to dive into that. I can show benefits for hours. Maybe this is not the forum, but I'd be happy to schedule something separate. Some of the time tracking information is Elevate HR's as well, and the payroll connector, the integration out to third-party payroll and benefit providers, is also ours. And actually, if you do want to swing by our virtual booth, we have fact sheets for everything, both the AX 2012 and the Dynamics 365 for operations products as well. Any other questions that I can answer? All right, well, what I will do is I will keep this line open for a few more minutes. If you do have any questions that you'd like to address real time, please let me know. I'm more than happy to address. You can also stop by our sort of virtual booth if you'd like, and we can answer questions there, either myself or one of my colleagues, or I'd be happy to set up another time to walk through any of this after the fact.